First up, we have a reasonably terrifying story. This is China launches an app to dob in debt.
Basically, this is an app that tells you if you're within 500 yards of somebody in debt and encourages you to report them if they seem capable of paying up. This is a weird one, isn't it?
Well, then they actually mapped people, right? Like, this is terrifying.
Yeah, it's not if they're capable. The app tells you if they are capable. It's kind of like this old Spanish system whereby they shame you into paying back your debt. So the Spanish system, which I actually thought was an old system but actually still exists, is basically they send a man in fancy dress to follow you around to embarrass you until you pay back your debts. This is the same idea. So basically what happens...
I like that, though. Like, the shame view of it sounds like quite entertaining.
We talked about this a little bit last week, didn't we? About, like, I think we should shame people into behaving better rather than fining them. The point about this is it's access through WeChat, right? Yeah. So this shows that WeChat is working very, very closely with the government. It shows that Tencent and all those companies, despite them saying they want to stand independent, are clearly not. You have to choose to access it as well. So everybody in China has WeChat, but you can choose to access this debt thing. So basically you're saying, I want to see my neighbors. The point is, when you find your neighbors and you encourage them to pay them back, you get points, which adds to China's new social score. So if you get points, then you get to do things like apply for jobs. If you get negative points, then you get banned from traveling, slower internet speeds,
what?
Reduced access to good schools.
I was fine with the jobs thing.
Yeah.
But the slower internet speed is not okay.
Yeah. Wait, so if you partake, your social score
goes up.
Like goes up. I thought it was just if you're in debt, your social score goes down, and if you're reported
but if you
work,
it's basically the old communist informing system.
Like if you name and shame.
Gamifying just citizenship.
It is. It's a bit
basically.
like Pokemon, when you see kids running around trying to find Pokemon and getting it's awful.
So they're going to catch all of the debtors, essentially. Is that
the thing is that like debtors already feel bad. Like people who are in a lot of debt that they couldn't go to a shop and not that their card's going to get declined, they're probably feeling pretty embarrassed about that anyway. And there's a very clear link between mental health and people with, severe debt problems. It's just it's sort of textbook bad thing to do. I mean, it's the opposite of what you should be doing. I mean, I think, is it Mind who has their Still in the Red study, which shows the sort of link between mental health and debt. And it's just sort of, I guess it's like saying that that's okay thing to do. And it's just going to, I think, it's probably going to make people feel way worse.
I think it also ties into the fact as well, though, that China made access to credit stupidly easy. And loads of people took on lots and lots of debt with thinking it was free money. And so some of those people actually are capable of paying it back, but some of those people are not. And the thing that actually scares me is more about how are they deciding that they think you're capable. So some of those people will be capable of paying it back and will be living on free credit because it's better than trying to earning enough money or whatever. But my concern is who makes that decision?
It's a fair question about who makes the decision. I think I just want to step back to the macroeconomic point you made there about there was a lot of cheap credit. China's been through massive growth fueled by lenders who really didn't understand lending to a consumer base that really didn't understand borrowing. Not surprising they've got the problem in the first place, but this solution is really, really concerning because anybody, it seems on the surface of it, anybody with this app can now just approach a stranger and say you're in debt or can find all kinds of information and tell the authorities about you. It really concerns me. And it was also the Money and Mental Health Policy Institute have done some really good work around the links between debt and mental health. Like being socially shamed on top of already feeling a sense of shame. I'm really concerned.
And I'm not sure that, if the ultimate goal here is the control of it, I mean, there's probably much better things you could do that are a lot more positive. I mean, look at step change, the sort of debt advice you can get, a debt management plan. There's still ways where you can get control, but in a more positive way, not having everyone walking around being, embarrassed and shamed.
I just can't see China doing it. I completely agree with you. I think that all over Western Europe, that is a thing. Can you imagine China doing that?
But that's what's amazing is the gap between kind of where we are. Now if you're a day late with bills or whatever, and it comes in and they'll say, are you struggling? Can we help? What can we do? You've got credit checks. You've got a formal infrastructure in place for these sorts of things. This is,
but I think it makes not just societal sense; it makes business sense as well. Because actually, if you're helping people through those problems, they won't default as badly as well, right? So actually, it just makes business sense not to be dicks, really.
I just think, what's interesting for me, picking up on what Sarah was saying about the old communist style this seems to emulate, actually. The majority of Chinese people seem to agree with that. There was a recent survey in 2018 about this sort of social credit system, and 80% of people who responded said they thought it was a good idea, and 76% said they thought a lack of trust in other people was one of the biggest problems in Chinese society. And so, maybe conversely, there's something about having this wisdom of the crowd that in a way seems fairer than the old system of you can't trust anybody because they could be an informant, they could, dob you in, to the authorities. Versus this, if it's in some way the verdict of a mass amount of people, that's the big idea of social credits overall, not just the debt aspect.
I think it's an interesting idea that we could have a cultural bias and a cultural lens on this that we don't like, but is actually much more acceptable in a different economy. But what concerns me is that this is tech and data driven. It's not socially driven. So the technology is arming people with the ability to go, that person's in debt, report them. And so that behavioral thing is really, really strange.
It's not just arming you with the ability to do it, it's encouraging you, it's incentivizing you to do it. And that's a further step.
Well, and like you say, the very subjective nature of actually somebody else's opinion about whether you look like you should be able to pay it back or not. It's like at the point where you're in debt, you've got to like go out with those old sneakers and ripped jeans just so you don't look like you can pay the debt back, and just walk around looking sad. It's
just funny, just to bring it back to Spain as well, that's a Spanish thing. You walk around parts of Madrid and they look terribly, terribly run down. It's deliberate because they don't, on the inside, the houses and apartments are beautiful, but it's a deliberate thing, and it kind of goes back to a similar idea and a similar era that you don't want people to know you've got money.
Wow. All right. Well.